Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday.
Monday. Oh, the copyright. I can't do that. All right.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. But as always, he's Gene,
He's Rennie.
and together we
We
are
are
unconventional
unconventional
heroes.
heroes. Yeah, this time
Um,
never
yeah,
changes,
no,
but
we're
I'm always
nailing it.
never ready.
Welcome to the 7th episode of Dungeon Delvers. Can you believe it, Gene? We're almost at 10. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a ton of classes. We haven't even dipped into
It's
spells,
true.
magic
We haven't talked
items.
about spells, magic items. It's true. There's still a lot of D&D out there, which is good for us. There will be a day when there's no more D&D left to talk about.
Not if WotC can
That's not true.
help it.
That's not true.
The amount they churn out books and then the new magic set.
That's true.
We're gonna be good.
I literally every other day I get an email from them like, check out this new bullshit. Have you checked this bullshit? Look at this bullshit. I'm like, oh, here we go.
I'm going to, so thank you.
Right? Well, thank you guys for joining us. It's always a pleasure for us to do this show. And today we are going to delve into the dungeon of the monk. And as always, this show is full of one thing, and it's full of a lot of them. And that thing is opinions. We are not experts. We are not doctors nor scientists. We are
much
merely...
to our parents' chagrin.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Constant disappointments. And however, though, we are two nerds with years of experience and even more years full of worth of opinions.
So many opinions.
Yeah. So, please stick around and enjoy. Going into this dungeon with us. If you guys or gals or anyone has questions as we go through the show, please feel free to post them up in the chat, and we will do our best to kind of address them as we go. If we ignore your question, please don't think that we didn't read it. It's more likely than not we are going to address it at some point later in the episode. But if that's not the case, we will definitely kind of look to your question and see if we can provide some insight. Gene, you want to talk a little bit about our new and exciting chat options?
Yes. So we currently are still running a community goal to have Rennie talk about his most favorite, most loved, most incredibly dreamt about class, the Warlock, which he
don't lie to these people.
Hates. But we'll make him love it by your points being spent. At least he'll pretend. Really good, maybe.
Yeah.
The other fun thing you can do is we have a new feature where you can spend a bunch of your channel points and you can trigger a trap in the dungeon. It is labeled under "It's a trap," and
it's a trap.
When you activate that, Rennie and I will stop talking what we were talking about, and we will set a 1-minute timer. And one of us will begin speaking a minute about various subjects of very old school D&D, not the oldest school, but we'll just talk about random shit for a minute it might have to do with the class in question, if that was a 2nd edition class, which it may have been, or not. I'm looking at you, Warlock. Anyway,
and Monk.
No,
actually.
no, there were books. There were books, forbidden books, that you could be a monk.
There was the forbidden knowledge. That's right. That's when they had not as PC names for those books.
And also, R.A. Salvatore wrote about the books of the Clerics Quintet. Monks.
He did?
They were second ed. Anyway, but we will be talking, and so throughout this time, like Rennie said, you can do questions. You can help put more points into our community goal. I think we're at what you said, 92%.
94%.
94%.
And I hate everyone that. I don't hate you, but I wish bad things to happen to your big toe, because talking about warlocks is like chewing on rusty glass, and I don't care that glass can't rust.
But lucky for you, if you spend those points, Rennie will love to chew on that glass and talk about that warlock stuff. But
I'll chew on it with a smile.
so that is what we have special for Dungeon Delvers. Tomorrow we are doing the Lost Legacy stream again at 7:30, where I will be running live play D&D, and you will have the option to spend your points to give the players or the DM inspiration, and that can help affect the gameplay, and that could give them bonuses or let me be a little luckier against them. So we do that with our points, and maybe we'll come up with some other stuff. Also, we have a new sweet emote that uh,
We
Ju-
do.
that Julia built, and it is pretty cool. Hold on.
So Gene, on kind of a tangent, before we get into this, speaking of tomorrow, are you excited for this Dark Alliance game?
Oh yes, but I don't know. I've never played the other Dark Alliances, so
Right.
I'm a little like hesitant in fully
I'll be
going.
honest, I don't think this is like a you need to know what has come before, because this game seems like super action heavy. And yes, you have Drizzt and Catti-brie, Wolfgar, and Brunor, but I feel like it's just like an action game, but you get to fight D&D monsters, and I am super excited about it.
Yeah, I haven't looked into it yet, but I'm definitely considering it. Yeah, I mean, I've played some of the other Dark Alliances. Like I've seen my friends play like the
Yeah,
Warhammer
yeah,
ones and stuff, or the Vermintide kind of equivalent. And I think
right.
it's similar to that, but I'm not sure. So I'll have to take a look at it eventually.
I mean, I'll tell you, man, I've seen some gameplay stuff, and I've kind of followed it, and I'll be honest, it looks kind of dope, and I'm really excited to see some of these D&D monsters. And don't get me wrong, like I'm excited to like play these heroes and fight them, whatever. But like, I really want to see them make D&D monsters kind of these big action pieces and boss fights, and just see how they sort of interpreted what we know as why X D&D monster is dangerous, and how they translated that into a video game, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be super cool. I'm excited because they can use the one monster that is unique to D&D alone, and that's the Beholder.
The Beholder, yeah. Yeah. No, it's thrilling. I don't know. And yeah, no, I got early access to the game, so Gene, I'm going to tell you tomorrow exactly how cool it
Nice,
is.
nice. Yeah, and maybe I'll pick it up if you give me some good reviews on it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sticking around, guys. I figured we were talking about Ari Salvatore, and tomorrow specifically a cool game that he had a hand in making with writing these characters. But without further ado, I think it is time to dive into the dungeon of the monk.
But I changed it. Or in the den. As it slowly
Um.
loads.
Oh
Hold on.
man, I love that mimic emoji. It's great. All right, Gene, I'm rolling initiative. Get
All
ready.
right, you start. See who goes first on the topic. Cracks it open.
Ooh, right down the middle. Right
But
down the middle,
it's
Gene.
above the 10, so that's probably good for you. Oh, I told you.
Feeling
I
good.
want to know
Feeling
that
good.
pre-stream I also rolled a 7. So
Nice.
this is
Nice.
very on par.
Gene, off to you know what? This feels good. This feels right. I feel like we're in it. All right. So as always, we like to talk about why be a certain class, and why be a monk. There is hundreds, if not thousands, of examples out there, and some of the things that we've seen or that we've drawn inspiration from are things like the Monkey King, the Matrix movies, Iron Fist, Ryu, Ken, Ip Man, Legend of Drunken Master. They literally modeled a whole subclass off of a couple of Jackie Chan movies. Um, Avatar: The Last Airbender, again, a whole subclass based off that cartoon show. Liu Kang, Mickey from Snatch. Any fans of the sort of British crime comedies out there? Any number of fighting games, any number of martial arts movies. Kevin from Sin City. Listen, when it comes to martial arts and doing things beyond the human scope, with just the power of karate or the power of martial arts in general, There's a lot of examples out there. I think an important note to make kind of at the top of the episode before we dive too deep into stuff is that while martial arts obviously has a strong influence in Eastern philosophies and Eastern media, there is nothing saying that in the game that you play that you have to be an Eastern monk or, your philosophies are of an Eastern kind of bend. And you can be, again, there's nothing saying you can't, there's nothing saying you have to be, but if you're going to be, we just suggest you be very respectful and really just kind of give due to that culture and not overstep your bounds. It is a fantasy game, and yes, you throw magic around, which certainly is outside of the norm, but there's nothing wrong with just being respectful or kind of reimagining how it sort of worked in real life and how that might change in a magical fantasy world. So yeah, that's sort of the top of the episode stuff we want to kind of
Yeah.
handle before we get too deep into this stuff.
Oh, I was thinking another good one would be the transporter, or pretty much anything Jason Statham plays
That's
in
true.
most action
That's true.
movies.
That's true because there are a few when he before he became this British action star, he does have a few movies where he's just a guy. He's just a guy who does stuff.
Yeah.
So it is important to note, definitely just his action roles.
And speaking of this transporter, I mean, as a monk, why you want to be it? Do you want to do insane physical stunts that use agility and speed and defy the laws of physics and gravity? Because if you
Hmm.
do, it's for you. You want to run across ice, water, up a wall? Sure, why not? You're a monk. It's awesome. You want to do fucking sweet flips and shit and do backflips and kicks and kicks and punches while also doing 18 cartwheels? Dope. That's you. Do you love the Power Rangers and want to fight like the Power Rangers? Bam. You got sweet abilities to do that.
Oh
Um
yeah.
yeah. Also goes into some of the other things that you can also do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, one of the things that I love about being monk is you get to be the fastest man alive, or woman alive, or centaur alive. Um, oh, by the way, centaur monk, new character idea, G. Um, But yeah, no, there is something to be said for having the best movement speed in the entirety of the game of D&D. And it doesn't get much better than Monk. There are other classes that get close or can increase their speed. Monks don't have to try hard to be insanely fast. Gene, you want to talk a little bit about the enlightening part of
Yeah,
Monk?
but I want to touch back on Centaur Monk. Uh,
Oh,
you
sure.
you get to overcome one of the greatest difficulties of Centaur Monk, which is climbing. If you are a Centaur Monk, because you could just gallop up that fucking wall like a
Yeah,
hero.
Gene, you're selling this so well. I'm not even gonna lie.
listen. I'm gonna play Master Ed. That's fine. Oh yeah, you see what I did there? Nice, nailed it.
Wow,
Okay,
wow,
I'm gonna help you
wow.
tap into that enlightenment. Um, so kind of like a big focus of the monk is their key, and like what is key, and that's like them tapping into their own like either self enlightenment, the in tuneness and harmony of like their mind, body, and spirit, and they can then kind of manipulate that in others. 95% sweet on the community goal, but it helps you tap into this like inner power. It's like if you even take like some of the real life stuff, like some of those like Shaolin martial artists or some of those extreme martial artists from different parts of the world who can do insane things that are not physically possible, but they've pushed themselves mind, body, and just self to do that, leaping 10 feet vertically, that's insane, or being able to like do your 1 inch punch and launch someone 10 feet.
Oh yeah.
These are kind of mind over body things, and obviously knowing the mechanics of how your body and interaction with force works, but that is part of your character, is understanding that harmony in everything. How to apply it physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And it is important to mention that while there are people very much in the real world who believe in ki, and that ki is a force that exists within your body and does all sorts of things, in D&D, very much ki is magic. There's no people believe in ki, so it's real. No, ki is just another form of magic in D&D. I think that's important to relate because she is very real to some people, and this is very much a fantastical version of that thing. Another thing I love about the monk, by the way, getting back kind of into their meat and potatoes, is they're extremely self sufficient. You don't need weapons, you don't need armor. You just kind of show up in wearing your sweet karate gi, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm good. What's up? Oh, fighting dragons? Cool. Let's go. You know, storming the castle. Let's get it done. You know,
Are you some sort of astral hobo? Yep, but I
you might
can,
be.
but I can still hit things.
Yeah. So and not only just do they not need equipment, but a lot of their abilities kind of make it that if you play a campaign where there's very little magic items, being a monk, you're not going to be terribly disappointed in the things that you get access to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, going back a little bit on that spirit and body perfection, you get a lot of immunities and defenses, which kind of lets you overcome a lot of extreme difficulties that most people do. Including aging. You get the Highlander rule of you're immortal until proven otherwise.
Proven
Um,
otherwise. Yep.
and you're very a lot of your class skills and abilities are very self-serving or selfish in nature because they just kind of involve you and then you affecting a monster again that you are fighting against, which everyone can do. But your abilities
Yeah.
don't often help other people besides maybe making a creature easier to hit. But that's still helping you because it lasts up until your next turn. So,
Right.
yeah, only through a few special cases of certain traditions or some of the new Tasha stuff do you really get to flex at maybe helping others, but it's few and far between.
Hell, even the Tasha stuff's still about helping yourself.
That's true.
Um, but something that I always like to look at whenever I look at a class and I say, "Hey, is it for me? Is it not for me?" Is kind of where does the role play opportunities kind of come out of it? Where is the story beats that I can find in that character build or that class build? And with being a monk, I feel like there's a lot of role play opportunities depending on are you playing up that sort of like master student kind of ideology? Are you doing that sort of like, hey, you were raised at a monastery and maybe you were very kind of cloistered from the real world, and now with the skills and abilities you've learned, you're out on your own, and what does that mean? And there's just a lot of interesting philosophical kind of questions you can play around with Monk. And like, listen, every character or person might have their own philosophy, but with Monk, very much your philosophy can literally lead you to lasers, or you know, lead you to being able to breathe fire on your opponents. So philosophy is a little more important for them to some degree. And what I've found that I really like is kind of like, not all monks are looking for enlightenment, but for those that are, what does the path to enlightenment look for from your monastic school or your monastery? Like, is it, the way of the open hand? Is that peace can only be achieved through, the righteous means, whatever the case may be? Is it looking for harmony between man and nature? Is it whatever that is? But finding whatever sort of philosophy and path of enlightenment makes sense for your character can be a lot of fun because it sort of gives you a far, far, far long reaching goal. And it gives your GM kind of fun sort of fodder to play around with, especially when it comes to interacting with other people and your surroundings and stuff like that. So, yeah, monks are a lot of fun.
Yeah, pretty in.
I suppose it's time to move into our next level of what does it mean to be a monk?
Probably a lot of cool things.
Probably.
Going first. 19. Oh,
Ooh, setting that bar pretty high.
nice. Uh,
Oh, there we go. All right, all right. I think the statute of limitations. Can I do it? Can I do it? Cannot.
okay. So, what does it mean to be a monk? Well, Rennie kind of touched on this as we ended the last segment, but it's that enlightenment, the idea of what philosophy or what has pushed you beyond the mortal bounds. What have you made? What have you realized? The secret about the universe and its building blocks, and how you can now affect them. And each of these like monastic traditions kind of specialize in different ways of manipulating this harmony, whether it's becoming one with the blade or weapon, or wielding the balance between the four elements themselves, or holding life and death in each of your hands. It all seems to be a bit of like a kind of harmonious balancing act. um and so, yeah, that's kind of that's like one interpretation, but there are many others, and you can kind of choose how you go down that path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Um, is yeah, and I mean honestly, and again, there's this interpretation is wildly varied from person to person to you know from character to character. But something kind of like what I love about monks is that every single level you get something. You get an ability, you get an ability score improvement, you get a new class feature, you get a new monastic tradition feature. Like being a monk is cool because sometimes when you level up with other classes, you just get like, oh, I get another spell slot. Oh, I get two spell slots, but you don't really get much out of it. With monk, every level, it's like, hey guys, I'm better at that thing I could do, or here's a brand new thing I could do. And it's kind of cool that every level you're going to kind of get new stuff to do. Uh, and no level really feels kind of wasted. Where sometimes maybe if you're multi-classing, you're like, do I go with this level because I get something immediately, or do I go with that level because it's going to build something cool? Monks, every level you're getting a thing, which is great.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, also, like, they're like starting out the gate, getting martial arts, it, being able to get not just one attack but two attacks around, and getting your full damage bonus applied to it, unlike most offhand attacks. You kind of
True.
become this machine gun of death at high levels because you can just increase that with your, key fuels, like your stuff, all your cool abilities. You get to stun people, you get to do flurry of blows. You're so fucking fast. Using your key to dodge so you can like get in the way of attacks and just have a hard AC. But, you know, your key makes, it's very, very scarce, but a super valuable resource. Like, it wouldn't be surprising if you use, as half, if not all, your key every fight, depending on how
Yeah.
hard the fight is, just to kind of really blow things away or make sure that you start off strong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, key is a precious thing. Um, Something I love about monks, and again, I feel like it's just one of those abilities they sort of tacked on there because it's cool. It's just straight up cool. Is deflect missiles where you just are like, oh, this arrow, and you catch it out of the air. You're like, you talking about this arrow? I mean, I wouldn't worry about this little guy, and you get to throw it back at them or toss it away, and I just love it. And I remember when I played a monk in Gene's game whenever there was archers, I was always excited. Whenever there was ranged attackers, I was excited. But Gene like got wise to my bullshit. He was like, "No, they're not shooting
I
at
mean, you
you."
did get to block a boulder that was thrown at you once.
I will say though, there was that one time though where a giant threw a boulder at us, and I got to straight deflect it because it was super cool. Um, yeah, I'm gonna kind of move through the next one, Gene.
Oh yeah.
Just because that's the only one there. But I really like Slowfall too, because it lets you just get risky. It lets you just kind of like, oh, falling doesn't matter, and it's not that it doesn't matter. You just take less damage when you fall, but it really means of like, oh, if you do a little bit of the math, it kind of just means, oh, I know that I can fall X feet without hurting me, and I could probably fall an extra 10 or 20 feet on top of that without it really being too detrimental to me, well, that makes things really exciting. If you want to fight on rooftops or, grapple your enemies and drag them to rooftops, whatever, man, like whatever, whatever you're feeling. But slow fall is great because, again, occasionally you're gonna fall off stuff. That's life. But it also lets you just get risky, get wild. Same thing with unarmored movement. Starting out, it's just a great way to go faster. But as you get higher level, when you can start running across liquid and running up vertical surfaces, well, walls are meaningless. Like castles, their whole deal is that castles are impenetrable because they have high walls. You're like, yeah, whatever. I don't give a shit. Is that a 50-foot wall? That took you a year to complete. Yeah, it takes me 6 seconds to run over that wall. Cool, man.
Ooh.
You know, and don't get me wrong, I'm maybe making it to be kind of dicks, but it also just lets you do these sort of running across walls, running up and over things, infiltrating. It lets you it broadens your options and your abilities to affect the world around you, which is always fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And also, it's like some of the even the like doubling your jump distance is pretty cool because you can.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, it makes you real fast, real movie. I mean, let's then just go really to the bread and butter. Like one of the main things of why you go at least 5 levels if you dip into Monk. Stunning fucking strength. It's the
Stun,
greatest.
stun, 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 stun.
I mean, it's an amazing ability. It makes the enemy you're facing lose a turn.
hmm
It gives you advantage against them. They fail dex and strength saves, and it is the bane of GM's existence everywhere. It
Yep.
doesn't ruin our times. It just makes these really cool fights not as cool sometimes. If you can completely knock out an enemy's turn, it's rough on the GM. And I know recently I was telling Rennie about how I just watched a monk beat up an entire group of PCs, and that was
Yep.
real rough, real rough to watch.
In
And
the
yeah,
words of Zuko, that's rough, buddy.
that's rough, buddy. I mean, and there are very few creatures that either have advantage against being saved for stun or even rarer immunity.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you get that amazing ability at 5th level, which just seems like if you got it at higher level, it might be like, wow, that's powerful, but you're fighting really nasty stuff. At 5th level, you might still be fighting like that orc captain, and you're just like, oh, are you like the coolest orc that ever lived in this band of orcs? Stop.
Yeah.
Shut. Quiet time.
Are you an
Like, just
ogre that swings 2d8 plus a bunch of damage? Yeah, you should stop that because you're going to kill our party
yeah,
members.
yeah. But not only do you get an incredible attack feature that is got some pretty terrifying control aspects, but you get amazing defenses. Shocker. Like such as evasion, which again, there are two classes in the game that get it: monk, rogue,
Some ranger.
and some ranger. Sure, and you could feat into it, and again, you could get shield master, where you get baby's evasion. But it's just baked into Monk. You know, you're just such a agile and speedy person that you just get out of the way of shit. It's great. Plus, you know, and if again, giving a physical defense to them like evasion kind of makes sense, right? You can visualize cartwheels and shoulder rolls and all that stuff. But then they also get stillness of mind, which lets them just stop being charmed or frightened. And again, there's no cost, there's no key. You don't have to spend your key to do it. You just have to spend your action to be like, oh, that thing, I'm not that thing anymore. I've chosen not to be. And to me, that's wild.
Wild.
um, you know, while fear and charm, there's a lot of ways to get around it, get out of it, stop it. You know, on the PC side and definitely on the sort of monster side too. Uh the fact that you just get to kind of like snap your fingers and be like, what were we talking about? Like just is pretty incredible in the defense department.
Oh yeah. I mean, and like to kind of build on that, eventually they just decide to be proficient in every save. And then they can spend key points to reroll those saves because like you know what needs to happen? You need all your friends to not make their save. You need to make your save and not be able to help them and punch what made them hurt. So, yeah, they're just ludicrous. Like, and as you just get higher and higher level, things just get better and better. Plus, at that point, you have way more key, so you can just keep
Yeah.
spending and spending.
You know, and I'll say this, like Diamond is it Diamond Body, Diamond Soul, I think it's Diamond
Yeah,
Soul.
Diamond Soul or something.
Like, if it just gave you proficiency in all your saves, you'd be like, this ability's amazing. Thank you, 14th level. But it's like, oh no. But if you fail the save, just spend a key and re-roll it. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
Like,
like and like Rogue gets an additional save eventually. But
yeah.
they get one. Monks get all of them. Just
All all, please.
like I'm picky. I'm sorry. I can't just settle at one. I need them all.
I can't choose. Um, yeah, and again, monks have a lot, and again, you're gonna hear a lot of how monk abilities kind of make monks better. And you know, there's some argument out there, I guess, about like, hey, maybe monks need all this stuff to make them better, and I don't know if that's true or not, but there's definitely a design basis you can tell that is very sort of inner harmony, inner key, kind of manifesting as making this individual better. And you know, well within line of that sort of mentality is they gain immunity to disease and poison because you just have achieved a level of chi and body harmony that you cannot be diseased or poisoned, which is solid. You know, it's not amazing, but it's definitely solid. Um, and you can't age magically, nor do you need to eat food and water eventually. Which again is just sort of neat. By the time you get it, you're fairly high level when you don't need to eat food or water. Um, so it's nice, but you're just sort of like, oh, it's kind of like that Forrest Gump, like, oh, well, one less thing. That's nice. Like,
Yeah,
I just don't gotta worry about that no more.
yeah. And also, it lets you be like Master Roshi, where you're like this old decrepit man, but because your penalties of aging don't really affect you, you're just as effective as fighting as when you were young.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I mean, another like let's make them even cooler. Empty body is super fun. I mean, it's very like role playing where you're like, oh, because I am so in touch, I can both be a spirit and also leave the corporeal world, but I can also affect it around me. And so, you get the ability to turn invisible and also just straight astrally project because, you're like, I'm done being in my body. I have to go now.
I have to go.
And you can send your spirit out on sweet, dope ass monk adventures. And it
Yeah,
only affects yourself. Very,
right.
very traditional to the role.
Yeah, and I mean, again, those are super high level stuff, and they're just neat role play stuff. I feel, you know, Hopefully, by the time you hit that point in your campaign, you actually have a reason to astrally project as opposed to just showing off. Um, but kind of when you think of Monk and you think of their what they do in combat, you know, honestly, they're kind of a Swiss Army knife. Monks are really good at kind of filling in the gap. I guess if I were a sports person, I might call them midfielders. They kind of can play a little defense, play a little offense, kind of do it all. They're great at skirmishing. Their mobility is second to none. They're really good if you have an objective that you need to kind of complete mid combat, untie the hostage, press the lever so the trap stops, whatever the case may be. Monks have a lot of action economy boost and a lot of mobility and speed, so they're very good at handling kind of those unforeseen problems. They have some crowd control with their stunning strike. It's very directed, it's very singular, but it's still very powerful. Um, they can deal high damage with multiple attacks if they kind of focus fire. But it's sort of, think of more their total damage dealt as opposed to individual damage done. Um, and I'll say this, I've even found that in occasion when your paladin, your fighter, your whoever, they need to get patched up or, they're kind of dealing with a problem over there and you need someone to just kind of tank over here real quick. I find that, they can do some tanking, kind of like dodge tanking, if you will. It's not perfect per se because they don't really have ways to draw aggro, but it can be done. Um, and that's the thing. They're maybe not necessarily good at any one of these roles, but they can kind of hang tough and fill anyone's shoes for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're pretty good at this like kind of skirmishing action. I agree with that. And especially with some feat support, they can get real silly. Uh,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
but for out of combat role, I honestly think they don't have that much, but they they can move real fast. So if you ever have a foot race, they're probably gonna win. Uh, or you need to get an item to a place. Great.
True.
That if you need them, like Rennie kind of gave the example of scaling a castle wall to get like the drawbridge open, a monk could be pretty solid at doing it with speed and maybe some stealth. Not as stealthy as a rogue, but they can still get there. Well, depending on the monk. Um, eventually they can
And
understand.
Dex is usually pretty good too.
Yeah. Eventually, at higher levels, they can understand every spoken language by a living being, so that can kind of give them like a cool negotiator slash interpreter role.
Yeah.
They're immune to poison and disease, so you could always be like, the royal food taster or something. Um, you're like, I don't want to eat because I don't need to, but I do it anyway because it's my job. Now you just gotta build a monk who's a like a wine connoisseur.
Ooh, a sommelier.
Yeah. They're decent scouts because again, even if they get caught, they're like, cool, pew, and they're gone, and the
Yeah.
monster catching up. Has to catch up with them, and it'll still give them time. And what's nice is that all the monks get to start with either like a tool or a music instrument, so you can kind of, lean into if you want to go with like a peasant background of like, oh, I know a trade that honed my discipline and knowledge to get to this point. So that's kind of what they do out of combat. There's not much more.
Yeah. Again, a lot of those abilities are self-serving, not necessarily
Group.
group group oriented. So real quick, we're gonna something we started doing is kind of talk about some of the Tasha's optional rules for classes that are out there. I think that the monk optional abilities are kind of solid, but I don't know if they're necessary. I think they're neat and they're nice, but again, I feel like you're adding cards to a deck that's already full, in my opinion. Um, like for the first one, dedicated weapon, I think has its place. but you still need proficiency with the weapon. So, like, you can turn a weapon into a monk weapon, which is really nice for certain magic items, I guess. Um, but again, you need to be proficient with the weapon in the first place. So, like, any weapon you're proficient with is already a monk weapon. So, I'm not really sure what the design choice is here. I don't know, Gene. Do you have
Yeah, no.
any opinions on this?
Well, I think a lot of the older lineages, which were races, they have weapons built in. Elves, dwarves,
Right.
orcs. You know, a lot of them got proficiencies with specific weapons, and so
True.
those weapon families that it would make sense. I think that if you had this like tough as nails monastic order of dwarves, why not
Right.
them fight with battle axes and
I
other
mean, couldn't you already though before dedicated weapon? And I mean, maybe
they
maybe this is
wouldn't
my
they wouldn't have counted as monk weapons because they are
ah
only the simple weapons and short sword
right.
specifically.
No, that's
So,
so. I mean, I guess that's nice to kind of if you get proficiency with a weapon from somewhere else to kind of bring that in.
and also if like through roleplay choices, let's say you started off as a paladin and
Mm,
you multi-class into monk, or you give up your ways and something like that, it kind of lets you still use a familiar item without losing all of the benefits. And it would make sense that you can kind of, there are countless martial arts weapons that used in a different way could be, counted for a martial form. And so I think it makes
right.
sense now to be like, listen, if you can get proficiency in it, and also there's even a feat that just gives you certain weapon proficiencies.
Yeah, no, that's very important because your martial arts only works with only monk weapons. So yeah, no, all right. I guess its benefit is a little better, but I still feel it's fringe cases. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely. Like I know in my Wednesday game we have a barbarian monk, and
Right.
we found Talon, the great +1 longsword,
Talons. It's a beast.
the
It's a
beast.
beast.
And so we were like, you should use this, and he's like, I can't. I was like, have you seen the Tasha stuff? And he's like, I have not. I was like, use this, and he's like,
Yeah.
okay. uh,
Yeah.
um,
That's a good point.
I really, really like key fueled attack because it is awesome. Because it's really nice for like there are a few actions in that you take as a monk that are actions that cost key depending on what kind of monk you are. If you're like an elemental monk or if you're using some of these healing stuff from Tasha's that we'll get into, that you're like, man, I can't really do dick with my bonus action unless I spend a key where like a dodge or something. But this key fueled attack says that if you spend your key during your action, you can still get one bonus action attack. It's not your flurry of blows, but it can be done with your monk weapon or your unarmed, which kind of gives you a lot of versatility in not feeling like you waste your action economy if you take a different action with your key.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true. So yeah, it is very nice for that. I like quickened healing. I think it's neat for some minor healing and like low cost for key. And it's based off your martial arts die. But honestly, it almost feels unnecessary. And I only say that because like, I guess listen, in a pinch, if you're at 2 hit points and you need health, sure. You get to add your proficiency modifier, your proficiency bonus plus your martial arts die. But again, even if your martial arts die, you're rocking a D8 or a D10. By the time you're rocking a D10, let's say, and let's say you get back 12 hit points, at that level, getting 12 hit points is kind of nothing, you know. Um, I imagine at lower levels it's really neat, it's really nice. But at higher levels, I just feel like it kind of drops off personally. Again, it's not bad, but it's nice. It's handy.
Yeah. Um, I'm looking at focused aim now, which is really neat because it's when you really, really don't want to miss with that attack. But the point cost for it, 1 to 3 key, especially at 5th level, when you get it, a huge amount to drain for only a +2 per key. The nice thing
Yeah,
is that you get to choose after. Um,
very true.
and also there is no limit to how many times you can do this with an attack roll. So if you really want to burn your candle at both ends, if you're missing by very little, you could boost all of your attacks, you know? And
Yeah,
that's
but you're that one round of combat could come out to like cost you 5 key or something. Like,
yeah,
woo,
but
woo.
that's the price you pay. If you really
Absolutely.
if you really want to hit, and that +2 is what you need. Sometimes it's better, it's not the damage that matters, it's that last point that does. So,
Right,
if you
right.
can squeeze that in, you know, might be worth it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's better to have hit than to have never hit at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's time to kind of move into some of the more focused aspect of the monk class, the monastic traditions. Um, are you ready, Gene, to roll initiative?
You want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
I'll go first. I generally win when I go first. Nope, never mind. Spoke too
Nice.
soon.
Nice. Nice.
Hoisted myself on my own petard. You
Yeah, I doubled your roll.
sure did, buddy.
So, monastic traditions or subclasses, or all of them, are kind of known as way of whatever, and it kind of goes into your discipline. Um, so you kind of get to like tell a story as you choose these subclasses or traditions, where you can lead your character along that way as they start as like an initiate monk, and then they kind of slowly and steadily master their abilities. Um, and each have their own kind of flavor. One is like very ninja like manipulations. One is, embracing your inner vision of yourself. And there's a few, different ones, but they all kind of choose your enlightenment, and you kind of choose that path, which is very personal to your character and your story. And it doesn't always mean that, like, they might suggest, oh, you're this disciplined person and you have to follow tradition. Who's to say a drunken master isn't just a dude who drinks a lot and fights, and somehow, due to his balance of learning and the cards aligning perfectly, he became a drunken master. Who's to say that instead of using his ki to stun someone, he really just punches a person in their solar plexus, and for that 6 seconds they're going and that's like
Right.
that's their equivalent of a stun. You don't always if you want to be in a low magic setting with your GM, you could always arrange for ki to be different things. Could mean something less magic, and it could just be your natural skill. It's a little hard to explain how you run across water, but if Jesus could do it, I guess so can you. uh
That's a perfect comparison, Gene.
Perfect. Yeah, I've never seen any other comparison that was asked. All right, I guess I'm gonna jump right into the first.
Do it to it, Gino.
This is the Way of Mercy. They're kind of like plague doctor monks. They get a bunch of extra skills, which kind of involve medicine and healing. Um, and then they get a really cool like RP flavor mask of like where they keep like those medicinal herbs. So you think it's like those raven masks, or it could be like a butterfly mask, or it's like a mask of like a strange creature that is like peaceful but also a little bit like foreboding. Um, and it's kind of this, you choose a mask to kind of administer your duties. Um, they get like a harm hand and a good heal hand, and this is one of the few monks that um actually aren't as selfish. Because
That's true.
their healing hand lets you heal yourself and others, and it kind of is based off of your martial arts die. And your harm hand lets you deal extra damage, which is pretty cool. Again, these things kind of cost key. Eventually, as you get more powerful, your healing not only does your normal amount, but it can also remove a few conditions, which are pretty shitty. You get to remove the stun condition, so you're great at fighting monks. um,
True.
and your harm hand can also put up the poison condition, which can really help it so that enemies can't harm you or your friends as well because they're at disadvantage. Eventually, as they get their like like their halfway point ability, they get the flurry of healing and harm, which allows when they use their flurry of blows without spending extra key, they can either do their healing hand with those actions, they can do one of their extra harm touches. They start being able to kind of really be like group heals, minor ones, or they can be like, we hate that guy and I heal you, or themselves. And then lastly, their amazing ability is they get this hand of ultimate bursary. So as long as something died within 24 hours, they can just resurrect it with a ton of hit points and remove a majority of the physical conditions on a person that's healed this way. And it heals them a decent amount of hit points. So if it's a friend who died just in this round, you slap them with this, and unlike Spare the Dying, where they pop up at one hit point, give them a good chunk of hit points, and you take away some of the conditions that might be on them. And that's the.
Honestly, I kind of love that it's a high level combat heal. Because don't get me wrong, there's definitely resurrection all over the place. You know, Revivify, Raise Dead. But like Raise Dead and Resurrection, you're not doing that in combat. That is take your time, get your diamond dust, get more diamond dust, make it happen. But this is just like, oh, did my buddy just get dragon breath to death? One moment, please. Blam, and they're back. Like
Yeah.
which is hella dope.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
all right. So,
I just want to
okay, Jimmy.
address Lock and Ruley. What happens if they're just a very trained chiropractor? So when they hit you, you're like, "Ooh, that feels a lot better."
They just adjust you on the
Crack,
fly.
crack, crack! Oh, I just healed. I healed like a D6 plus 2 hit points. Ooh.
No, that's fucking hilarious, dude. You just play a guy named Gil who just is a chiropractor. um, so the next monks up here are one of my personal favorites. And it is called the Way of Shadow. Um, they honestly, they kind of get a lot sort of front loaded to them. And think these are very much the Nightcrawler, of X-Men fame. These are kind of monks who also maybe moonlight as assassins. They're excellent infiltrators and exfiltrators. I don't know if that's a word. Um, but they, in older editions, you might have called them shadow dancers. That's for you old heads out there. Um, but one of the first things I love is shadow arts. Literally, just third level, you get darkness, dark vision, pass without trace, and silence without needing material components, and you get the minor illusion cantrip. I just love that it kind of hands you all these really solid second level spells at third level that'll honestly be useful to you for most, if not all, of your career. Magical darkness is a hell of a thing. Pass without trace, you are going to make your party super stealthy all the time. Silence, you will fuck spellcasters up constantly. Um, and the nice thing is with all of your movement and jankery, you can probably get out of counterspell range pretty easily too. Their next ability, Shadow Step, which honestly, in my opinion, is their kind of bread and butter. You just get a free teleport. It's just teleportation. As long as it's dark one place, you can teleport where it's dark another place. So it's a 60-foot teleport as a bonus action as long as it's dark. And plus, you have the means to make it dark where places it normally isn't. So you can get real janky if you plan ahead a little bit. And it also gives you advantage on the first melee attack you make before the end of the turn with that teleport making it very enticing to kind of maybe take some rogue classes, rogue levels, and really make that shine. The next one, Cloak of Shadows. Again, this is pretty crazy because you can just use your action to be invisible in places of dim light or darkness, and you remain invisible until you make an attack, cast a spell, or in an area of bright light. And again, that means theoretically, play your cards right. You move in very specific kinds of ways, and it means you could be invisible for uh, insane stretches of time. You put a blanket over you, well, you're invisible while you sleep. Granted, maybe the blanket over you is not going to cover you, but like you find a little nook in a corner, cool, you're invisible in that corner. It can be really powerful. It takes an action to do it, so you might not do it all the time in combat, but it means you're probably entering combats invisibly. You're breaking into people's houses invisibly. It's pretty sweet. And then the last thing, again, it's a lot of these are really nice because there's not a key cost to them besides the spells you get out the gate. And opportunist is no different. You just can do this from now on. That whenever a creature within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack made by a creature other than you, so let's say it's your buddy, let's say it's your fighter, your paladin, your other melee buddy, and they hit someone, you can use your reaction to be like, you know what? I like hitting people, and you can do it too.
Wait.
Again,
Oh, we're all hitting Bob? All right, I'm in.
fuck Bob, right? Um, yeah, no, and again, I hate to say it, but this is just kind of made for being a rogue monk hybrid. Gives you advantage, lets you attack off turn. These are all things that the rogue is like, yes, please, yeah, I want. How do I do that more? The sad thing is you don't get opportunists till 17th. So you don't get enough rogue to be maybe truly terrifying, but a little bit of rogue can go a very long way.
Nice. Yeah, so we're going to do something that we've never done before, which is we are going to talk a little bit about one of the Unearthed Arcana new monk paths because it's on here on D&D
Whoa.
Beyond and I have it. It's called Way of the Ascendant Dragon. I think it's definitely something to do with their push. I think Forgotten Realms is pushing a big dragon thing, probably for one of
All
their
right,
next ones.
real quick, G. What do you think it is?
Well, Forgotten Realm is the only place that has gem dragons
Sure.
in D&D. So I feel like it's going to be a more expanded Forgotten Realms. My hope would be touching into Spelljammer a little bit, but I just don't think they're going to do.
I honestly I don't think we're getting Spelljammer as much as my fucking second edition heart wants it. But I think they're putting out the definitive Draconomicon for 5th edition.
Oh, okay.
Because they've done it for they did it for third. They did it for did they do it for second?
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
of course there's a Draconomicon in second.
Yeah, there is a Draconomicon for second. They did it for third, did it for fourth. Like they're gonna I think they're doing a
Yeah, and
Draconomicon
they did
for
all that.
fifth.
They did that recent push on it, like, hey, look at how much cooler you can be if you're a fucking Dragonborn.
Yep.
Anyway, uh, so so the way of the Ascendant Dragon, you get to kind of choose how your chi or how your origin or skill is unlocked, and you become, this power, the dragon powered person. Um, and so it kind of reminds me of Liu Kang from Mortal Kombat when I think of the Ascendant Dragon. So first off, just out the gate, they get the ability to change our unarmed damage from bludgeoning to many of the different elemental types. Uh, you get to learn Draconic, which is cool, free language, more abilities to roleplay. And then you get a once per day. I didn't fail this charisma check you made me make DM because I'm not skilled in any of those. Asked me to do. And that's kind of cool. You gotta get like this majesty kind of from dragonness. Their Breath of the Dragon is pretty dope. He starts off not super powerful because it's based off your martial arts die, but you get a few free uses based off your proficiency, which is insane in my opinion because it's free. And then eventually you can buy some more with key points as you run out. And as you hit 11th, it empowers, which is cool because by that point you're also your punch dice in power, so your Dragon Breath does more. And you can also tack it on that it is part of an attack action, so you still get one attack, and that's not including your also flurry of blows or just regular martial arts extra attack. Their sixth level one is really good. They get like spectral draconic wings when they use their step of the wind, which means that hey, do I need to get a place that I can't run up a wall to? Or, oh my god, my enemy's flying. Cool, I fly up to them, and now I'm on top of them, punching them into the ground.
I mean, I will say a monk with a fly speed, it feels
Sir,
like, but why? Why would you do
you
that?
didn't need
Why would
it,
you do
but
that?
here you go. And that's pretty cool, because you also get a number of those free, and then you can spend an additional key point to activate. Their 11th level ability is really cool. The aspect of the worm, which kind of lets you get like a 30-foot aura, and you can give your friends and yourself resistance to a type of dragon damage, and also uh, your friends get a reaction that if they take damage, they can hit people back for your martial arts die in that weird type. Now, I think that's not going to be super useful because generally if you're getting resistance to one type of damage, that means that the creature you're fighting is either resistant or likely immune to the damage you're about to deal out. But maybe their minions aren't, or maybe it's just, hey, you've chosen fire because it's a super common resistance to have, and you do some extra damage and you hurt all those people. And then lastly, their ascendant aspect, their 17th ability, I think is pretty cool. Blind sight, amazing, especially a 30-foot blind sight. That's so good. Um, you get a little bit of a dot where you get to do like residual damage with your breath attack on people. It's not a huge amount, and they can keep repeating their save. But if they failed their save the first time and they're not great at making saves, it's a good amount of damage. It's a die worth of damage for free. And then lastly, when you if you have this ability, when you activate your sweet ass like aspect of the worm, you get to explode in damage and hit a bunch of creatures that you choose, so not your friends, and they take a lot of damage for that energy type you've chosen. And that is a really nice ability for a monk to get a nice area effect attack that triggers on one of their other actions that they're going to. So I think it's pretty good. My big takeaways from it is I told this already earlier, which is I think it's a little broken because they get a little bit extra uses of abilities that most monks have to just pay straight key to use. So those proficiency bonuses I think overbalance it in my opinion. But again, this is a playtest, so it might get toned down or it might get even more ridiculous. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's gonna go through some changes, but we'll see. I think it's a very cool way to represent the sort of this dragon push that we've been seeing. Um, Next up, we have the Way of the Astral Self. I kind of really like this monastic tradition, mostly because it is such a cool built-in role play. The whole idea is that when you channel your abilities with the astral self, you're sort of your soul, through your meditations, your traditions, whatever the case may be, your soul has empowered enough to sort of manifest on the physical realm. So essentially, every time you're using your abilities, you are exposing your soul, your true self. And I think that there's just some really cool story and visual aspects to that kind of representation where you can play sort of your physical body might be someone very weak, very not physically strong, but your astral soul could be sort of a seven-headed hydra because that's how you manifest. um it's really neat. And I think there's a really cool representation in media. Anyone who's familiar with the Borderlands series, I feel like Borderlands 3 did a great job of that astral self with Amara, where her fists come out and she does all these magical punches. I think it's a very good representation of that
I
sort of
mean,
ideology.
or the most classic JoJo Bizarre Adventures.
Oh, very much that. Yeah, very much that. Yeah, right out the gate, you get arms of the astral self where you can summon literal soul arms out of your body. Um, and it's great. You get reach with them. And when you first create them, you kind of get this like AoE around yourself to hurt. It's very cool when you can summon them and pummel a bunch of people around you. And then the nice thing is you get to use your wisdom modifier instead of your strength for checks and saving throws, which is really great because you probably don't have a great strength, just probably. Um, the spectral arms can make their own unarmed attacks, which means your hands can hold things. Again, that has a lot of variety and a lot of uses depending on what you hold. Be it a weapon, be it a wondrous item, be it any number of things. You get reach with your soul arms, and you get to use your wisdom modifier for them. So it's kind of nice. It's sort of a monk that you can kind of really focus on that enlightenment, that sort of wisdom of the universe kind of monk, as opposed to this sort of like super buff, super ripped, whatever kind of monk as well. And then at sixth level, you get the sort of visage of the astral self. Again, you get to expose more of your soul, more than just your arms. You now get the full visage. Um, and it's nice. It sort of comes over your head. Uh, and the nice thing is all you get to determine its appearance whenever you do it. And which can be a lot of fun role play wise to be like as your character changes, as you go through different trials, different tribulations, maybe your soul is affected by things. Maybe it is constant and evergreen and never changes. Again, the stories are endless. Being able to get astral sight, it's nice, see through magical darkness. That's the sweet stuff right there. Um, you have advantage on insight and intimidation checks. Nice, very nice. Again, you could play up that sort of like, true knowledge of the true soul. And then you essentially get a super whisper where you can target a certain person, or you get megaphone voice where you can make sure everyone hears you within 600 feet. Um, so it's actually kind of like a nice utility sort of use of the astral self. And then 11th level, you get kind of body of the astral self, where just a little bit more of your soul can escape your body. Um, and you're able to sort of deflect energy, much like how you can deflect missiles, which is it's just neat. It's just neat. Which means you can deflect spells. Because it just says when you take acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, or thunder, that means that you can be like, oh, did someone just shoot a firebolt at me? Well, bang, and you get to block spells, and that's just cool. That's just cool. Your empowered arms is nice. You get to deal a little extra damage when you hit people with your astral arms, which more than likely is constantly how you fight people, is when you manifest these soul arms. And then finally, you get to the awakened astral self, where your spirit is fully manifested in the real world. Um, and it costs you a whole lot of key to do, but boy, howdy, is it worth it. You get just a straight up bonus to AC, which is nice because monks, they sort of have an AC cap. Even if you go hard wisdom and hard dex, and you get those 20s, your AC is never going to get better than 20 without magic item support. So having a baked in class feature that lets you get your AC higher is nice. Um, and then in case you didn't need make enough attacks as a monk, you now get to make 3 attacks around plus possible flurry of blows with your with your astral arms, which is just pretty dope. 5 attacks around is real serious. Ask fighters. It's really serious. But yeah, honestly, I love this monk just because there's a lot of cool storytelling, and while a lot of their abilities are about their combat, except for Visage, it's just as cool. You get to kind of, oftentimes you're playing a character and their soul or their true nature maybe gets revealed in pieces, or you reveal as the story goes on. With the Astral Soul Monk, you are constantly revealing your true self to the world, and that's just from a role play standpoint is really cool.
Oh, something else is that even though like their like end stuff costs a lot of key points, it activates all the previous stuff before it. Like as part of your action when you activate the certain
Yeah,
like you get your arms and visage awaken with your body, so it's not as painfully costful, you know. So
right.
that's pretty cool. All right, next we will go to the Way of the Cobalt Soul, which is a critical role monk. They are not broken. They're super broken. Anyway, so their third level ability allows them, when they use their flurry of blows, to essentially learn. They get to analyze a person, which means that whenever that creature misses them with an attack, they can immediately attack with a with a reaction, which is nice. So especially if you're dodging or anything, super cool. Um, Also, you learn the creature's vulnerabilities, resistance, damage immunities, and condition immunities. So, like, do you want to know the rules of D&D? Because your character, I guess, understands the mechanics of. That's what I've learned today. Level 6, I think, is probably one of their. We talked about that earlier, DJ Poser, about how fucking yeah, the monk in Vox Machina versus Mighty Nine, she just cleaned house the entire fight. Anyway, extort truth is really actually a little bit of a, I think, a cool RP, because you kind of get like a pressure point zone of truth on someone, and that's kind of cool. Um, and then at 6th level and continuing on, you begin to pick up skills or doubling your proficiency in the skills you've picked up, which is nice. So if you want to be a smart person
Get a little
monk,
skill support. Yeah.
because monks generally don't have a lot of skills that help out. I mean, Mind of Mercury is the most broken thing I've ever read in D&D, I think, where you can just per turn spend a key point to get your reaction. And so that's not per round, that's his per turn. So that is on everyone's initiative. Do you want to be someone with somewhat legendary actions? Because this is the class for you.
Jeez, I didn't even think about it like that, but it really fucking is. That's
Yeah,
not cool.
it's ludicrous. And then Debilitating Barrage. I think it's pretty cool. It's not that costly, but it's a really nice ability that uh you can really lean up to really help support like your rogue, because you get to do it, and when you hit, you give that person vulnerability for a minute,
Oh, good God.
but it's only until they take that vulnerability type. So if you're lining it up for your rogue, you'd be like, cool, I punch this dude and they're now vulnerable to piercing, and then that rogue goes and like blows them away with a short sword or a crossbow.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's definitely nice. Not as powerful as some of the other top ends, but they are so built enough that I don't think they really need it. Also, I'm not going to talk about something else where mystical erudition seems kind of useless once you've learned all the languages.
It is 100% useless.
Well, I guess because you can read them.
100% useless.
But yeah. So I honestly think I think their monk Way of the Cobalt Soul is cool in concept. I think it's a little beefier than a lot of the other monks, especially with the manipulation of giving yourself more reactions. Though it's going to burn through your key points every time you get a reaction, it's going to be.
Very true. Yeah, definitely. Ugh, man. All right. Well, we're just gonna move right along to Way of the Drunken Master. Ah, God, I love this. I love them so much,
So
guys. I
good.
can't even tell you. I love them so much just because they're one of those paths that, like, you know what? They're not super powerful. I'll be honest. I like their abilities, and some are really solid, but you're never gonna have a bad time using their abilities. You're always gonna be giggling at how silly you make your opponents look, and maybe yourself look. But this 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 is one of those subclasses that really hit the nail on the head with like story, aesthetic, gameplay. Like it hits everything right, so that when you play a drunken master monk, you fucking feel like a drunken master monk. And out the gate, you get proficiency in performance because, of course, every time you get into a fight, it's just maybe it's like a dance. And you're every fight is sort of absurd in some degree or another, and you treat it as if a jester would treat a court. And you also throw in some martial arts at some point as well. I just kind of love that aspect of it. And you gain proficiency with brewer supplies. Neat. You can make your own hooch. Who doesn't love that? Drunken technique. You get free disengages whenever you flurry of blows, and you get an increased walk speed. You can really take advantage of that and gain some distance on your enemies or repositioning on your enemies, which is really nice. Tipsy Sway. Again, I just love not only the names of these abilities, but again, when you use them, you're just like, this is great. You see the ability Tipsy Sway, and you don't need to be like, what did they mean by that? You know what they were going for with this ability. Um, when you're prone, stand up only spends 5 feet of movement. Amazing, amazing. The only other way to do that is to take a feat, so that's pretty incredible. Redirect attack is hilarious. It's the literal stop hitting yourself. Just stop hitting yourself ability, which is amazing. And if a creature misses you, you can spend a key point to make that attack hit another creature. Again, this monk is all about getting in the middle of many enemies and just making a fool of yourself and them at the same time. Drunkard's Luck. It's just fun. Whenever you make an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw, and have disadvantage, you spend 2 key to cancel disadvantage. Now, the reason that's really nice, beyond just like, oh, did I have disadvantage of that? Nah, not me. I just get lucky sometimes. Is that it uh, cancels disadvantage. It like removes disadvantage. So in certain scenarios where if you have disadvantage, X thing does not work with their specific ability, it would still work if they cancel disadvantage. So that's nice. But again, a lot of times it's just gonna be like, man, how is this person alive? And drunkard's luck is probably how you're alive. And then intoxicated frenzy again. It's just awesome, and it feels very flavorful. Where you get to make an overwhelming number of attacks, and you use flurry of blows. You get to make up to 3 additional attacks for a total of 5, but you have to target different people. So, you're not always going to get all the bang for your buck on this, but let me tell you, when you can Three Stooges your way through 4 enemies, you're going to feel great. It doesn't matter if you did like 5 damage or 20 damage, you're just going to feel great to be like, I poked you in the eye, I plucked your nose, and I like gave that guy a wedgie. You're going to just feel, it's going to feel awesome to be that kind of jester, clown, drunken kind of character.
Rennie, speaking of jester clowns, why I've been smiling here this whole time. Thank you,
No,
Taco
no,
Farm. We have finally
No.
reached the community goal, and Rennie will gladly speak about Warlock on a Dungeon Delvers soon. And we will make him build a character that I will put on our D&D overlay in Dungeon Delvers. So maybe for that episode, we will go over Warlock, and then we'll take a small 10-minute break where Rennie will roll up a Warlock quickly, so we won't have a lot of time to make all those choices, and I can set up the overlay.
No, that's for the best, honestly, because the more time I have, just the more angry I'll be.
So thank you so much for helping us hit this 20K goal. Couldn't have done it without you. You guys are the best. Also, remember, you can still trigger a trap before we end the episode if you want one of us, likely Rennie, since I did the last one, to go on a 1-minute ramble about 2nd edition D&D. And without further ado, I will keep going. So, this is the way of the 4 elements. It used to be really bad. It really was. They updated it a bit, and they made some of the key costs a little less, which improved it. I don't know if they I don't know if they did it enough, in my opinion. So you're kind of like a spell casting monk, but you obviously follow the elemental sides of it. They get they get a special ability where they kind of get like a minor cantrip to affect all the elements just for free, and then they can kind of choose disciplines to represent like techniques, but they generally have level requirements. Some of the earlier ones don't. Some of them are pretty cool. Some of them are very flavorful, but they're a little key intensive. So if you are not with a group that can give you the short rest you need to replenish ki, you can run out of ki very quickly while not only doing what a normal monk does, because they get access to amazing spells and they get the ability to upcast their spells once they hit high enough level. So, some of their unique abilities, they can like imbue their hands with fire. They can like punch people from like a bunch of feet away with like an air punch, almost like 1-inch punch. They can like shape water and ice, kind of like bending, and they can also do like water whips, and they're super cool. But again, I will have to say, I think they're a little key intensive, where some of your higher end abilities, casting it is nice, but upcasting would be so expensive. And yeah, they get a lot of cool spells. They get a lot of like a monk who can fly. Rennie and I talked about that. That's incredible. But is 4 key points worth flying? Is is a wall of stone worth 6? Yes, but that's a 17th level ability. So you're not getting some of these really cool abilities until you hit very high level, and by that point, and you only ever cap out. Oh, thanks, DJ Poser.
Thanks, pal.
And you only ever cap out at like 4 or 5 techniques, so you don't really get a ton. You really kind of gotta pick and choose what you want. And so for me, I find that, I don't know, I think it's a little restrictive, and it's a really costly. And that's my opinion on the 4 elements. I don't really got much to say because I've played them once before and I just wasn't impressed, but they were also way more expensive when I first started.
Yeah, they've been. There was a rebalance attempt, and it's better, but you know, um, yeah, I guess kind of unofficially, there's been plenty of rewrites of the Way of 4 Elements Monk that are probably better, but that's case to case basis, and if your GM allows homebrew, so there you go. Next up, we have Way of the Kensai. Um, and I'll be honest, like, not that I hate that it's called Way of the Kensai, but I wish it was called Way of the Blade or Way of the way of the weapon, even though that's kind of lame sounding. Just I don't know. Kensai sounds it's very cultural to me, and I'd like to see it much more kind of broaden its horizons. But maybe this was made specifically for people who want to represent that culture as well. Um, I do like that you get a story built that you get to bond with a weapon and you sort of become the master of this weapon and it's an extension of your body and that kind of thing. Um, and it's nice. This monk essentially is one of the very few monks. Now, granted, dedicated weapon now exists, but Kensai's were the original. Oh, we don't use just monk weapons. We use all kinds of wacky weapons. Um, like right out the gate, you just can choose new weapons as long as they don't have heavy and special. And you get longbows, which is cool because monks normally get very limited range options. A longbow pretty much defeats that entirely. Um, Agile parry is really nice. You can, when you make an unarmed strike as part of your attack action and you're holding your Kensai weapon, you essentially get to gain a little buff to your AC. It's small, but it's nice. It's better than nothing, and with very few ways to buff your AC, it's kind of handy. Um, the Kensai shot is pretty cool. Um, but it's only a D4 of damage when you deal range. Now, granted, if you deal multiple range attacks, you deal multiples of D4s, which is nice. So it kind of has that Crusader's Mantle Divine Favor kind of aspect. But I think it's just okay. And the nice thing is you get proficiency with calligrapher supplies and painter supplies, as you very much, see weapons as an extension of your body, a paintbrush of war, as opposed to a paintbrush of art. Yeah, let's go with that. One with the blade is really nice, and the nice thing about Kensai 2 is that you get a lot of abilities at each stage of Kensai. Each time you get a subclass ability, so and one with the blade is no different. Your all your any Kensai weapon you use that is not magical counts as magical. Always good, especially if you're fighting ghosts.
Ghost
Death Strike.
Puncher.
You are a pretty great ghost puncher as a monk. It's pretty great. Death Strike. When you hit someone with your specific Kensai weapons, you can deal some extra damage equal to your martial arts die for some key. Now it's solid, but you can only do it once on each of your turns. Now I'll say this: that can kind of add up really nicely. Maybe if you multiclass a little, but even outside multiclassing, if you're using probably a higher die weapon, higher damage weapon, along with the martial arts, kicker, that can add up to a pretty nasty hit. And then at 6th level, you get more Kensai weapons. Choose new weapons; they are now monk weapons for you. 11th level, you get Sharpen the Blade. You gain the ability to augment your weapons with your key, which is really nice. I kind of like this. It's got a decent key cost to it, but you essentially just get to make your weapon a plus up to a +3 weapon. So you can just be like, yeah, today this slightly sharp stick, that's a +3 slightly sharp stick. You look out, and you kind of should, because that's really
It
serious.
kind of reminds me of like the martial arts master who plucks a reed to like fend their
Yes,
against their students like fully sharpened sword, and they're like ding 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 like.
yep. Oh, dude, it's exactly that, Gene. Yeah. And then 11th level. Hey, guess what? More Kensai weapons. Here you go. Because I'll say this: I think they give you more Kensai weapons than you need, but that's the nature of D&D. You might find new magic weapons. You might find new stuff that you want to play around with. 17th level. This is pretty great. Not gonna lie. Unerring accuracy. If you miss an attack roll with a monk weapon, you can re-roll it, and it doesn't cost you key or anything. You just choose to do that once on each of your turns. It's pretty amazing. And then at 17th level, hey, guess what? Even more Kensai weapons. So I'll say this: I like the way of Kensai, but I'll say this: I think it's kind of bland, and it's just And listen, there are plenty of sword master stories, and a fighter and his blade, and a warrior and that. I get it, but the class features are just very much like I hit better. Did I miss? Well, I try to hit. This sword and that sword are my sword. I don't know. It feels very niche to me. But the only story here is I stab good and gooder and more good, and that story is not terribly interesting, in my opinion.
Oh, I thought of a great fictional example of a Kensai.
Oh yeah.
Sirio Farrell from Game of Thrones with the water dance, the Bravo sword teacher, who like fends off against those
Ooh.
knights with the wooden sword at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he doesn't wear armor, and he's very graceful and almost like a dance and style.
Very much like a dancer, yeah.
So I was like, that's a cool like if you want to play like a Bravo, so like kind of like you know sword fencer who's a Kensai opposed to a
Right.
monastic tradition you chose that you have mastered like this. I could see like a really cool elven Kensai could be fun. Like mastering these weapons that like of your people and you're like a graceful fighter who like wears silks but no armor. Like that could be fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, see, DJ Poser. DJ Poser said, "So would Arya have been one too?" I feel that Arya probably picked up some of those skills, but she definitely multi-classed into like assassin.
Oh, hardcore.
But who's to
Yeah.
say that she didn't pick up, a few levels of Kensai? I don't know. You could build her
I
if you
mean,
want.
she was definitely true, very true to her blade. So I mean, I see that there is some amount of kind of parallel between, she was very attached to Needle. Obviously, it was kind of a big thing throughout the show, um, or and the book series, obviously. But I don't know. I don't know that I'd make her a monk. I don't like. There was discipline with Arya, but there was also just deep seated rage and
But
hatred.
But I mean, like, if you take like the assassin ability where they can like infiltrate by like enough time, can like,
Yeah.
infiltrate a place, combo that a little bit with Kensai, it makes you a little pretty potent rogue.
And honestly, you know what? With a lot of famous fictional characters, you could probably build them a handful of ways to sort of achieve whatever
Yeah,
their vibe or their motif was.
I mean, to dip into your favorite class, Warlock, where Mask of a Thousand Faces, you can
Boo.
make almost any one of those faceless, the faceless people.
I mean, I will say, I think Mask of a Thousand Faces is actually cool because
So
it's
fucking
it's it's
amazing.
only there for roleplay. It's only there for roleplay. So again, you know me, I'm all about that roleplay and that story. So
All right. Moving right along. So we have next the Way of the Long Death. They're kind of cool because they kind of like almost like take the key of those dying and empower themselves, and that's kind of scary but also interesting. So like if they reduce a creature, they get temporary hit points, and they get a decent amount. It's your monk level plus your wisdom mod. So that's probably anywhere from you know with a minimum of 1 to maximum 25. Every time you reduce a person to 0, you could just carry a bunch of pets around. It's kind of weird and mean, but you can be like, I must sacrifice you before this fight.
your GM will bitch slap you so badly if you do that.
Okay, so you get a bag of tricks, and then your GM can shove it. You're like, why'd you bust out this boar in the middle of the fight? You're like, what boar? And he's like, God damn it, not again.
Yeah, good luck. Good
Or,
luck hanging out with your party
or,
members after you kill small fussy
or,
creatures
whoa, whoa, whoa.
for your own self-serving
I
needs.
figured it out. You dip, you take magic initiate, and you summon a familiar, and you break its neck, and Every time. Nailed it.
Gene, Gene, when the van comes for you, don't fight it.
Well,
Just go with it, man.
just saying. Just throwing it out there. Anyway. Uh, so at third, when you open that, you get that. At sixth level, you get something really cool where you get a little bit of manipulation because you can just kind of like terrify those around you because you're breaking the necks of small animals. Which you should. Um,
That's not what it's about.
and you get to take an action and just make everyone scared of you until the end of your next turn, unless they make their save. And you can do that every action. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just your action. Um, at level 11, they get a lot of get out of dead free cards because they can
It's
just
pretty
spend
crazy.
key to be like, yeah, I didn't get reduced to 0. I have 1 hit point instead. No, I keep doing it, and they don't have to
Yeah.
roll. They don't. It doesn't cost increase. Pretty solid. Level 17, they kind of get this like large variable spend where they get an action and they can spend 1 to 10 key points, which is a huge amount because at 17th, that's more than half. And the creature has to make a con save, which most creatures are good at. But if they fail, they take 2d10 per key you spent. And if they succeed, they still take half damage. So you're not wasting your key even if you spend it. And also, you could do that as little as 1 point or as high as 10 points of key. So you could really spread it out, but know that it is your action. So you're going to have to balance that out if you don't want those multi attacks and stuns. But yeah, no, I think they're really neat. They kind of like remind me of almost like race or like ring race, kind of like gliding in and then like draining people of their like energy. Like, you know what? I figured it out. Who's it? Shao Kahn? Who's your soul
Your
is
soul is mine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just like as you take it from people.
Gene, that's Shang Tsung.
Shang
Come
Shun.
on.
Man, dude, I got Liu Kang. I'm done.
Cool. So next up, we have the Way of the Open Hand, and
O-
we are nearly through
OG
all of
Monk.
them.
OG Monk.
This is OG PHB Monk. I mean, I'll be honest; these monks are very much kind of almost closest, in my opinion, to sort of like the real world equivalent to like ancient masters of martial arts, where they can seemingly do things that seem superhuman only because they've punched, they've done 10,000 punches and 10,000 kicks. And it's like when your body just has done something so much, you can do superhuman levels of things with it. And this monk, honestly, in my opinion, is not overly impressive, but it's just good. It's just you are really good at being a monk. Um, the open hand technique, whenever you flurry of blows, um, you can either make someone fall prone or try to make someone fall prone. You can try to push someone away from you, or you can stop them from taking reactions. And again, that's kind of a very tactical choice every round. Knocking someone on the ground and then kicking them 15 feet away, that's mean. It's just mean. Um, but it's also nice if you want to just stop someone from taking reactions, then you can walk away from them without fear of reprisal. So you don't need to disengage. So there's a lot of very tactical uses to their abilities. Sixth level, again, it keeps you in the fight longer and keeps you being doing your monk thing. Just straight up as an action, you could just regain hit points equal to triple your monk level. Neat. Nice. Like just that's nice. Granted, you can only do it once per long rest, which I find is okay. Because even out the gate, you can get at 18, but let's say you're a 15th level monk and you can get 45 hit points back. You're gonna be really happy, but only being able to do it once per long rest, I'm not sure if that's a super balance act. This 11th level ability, Gene loves Tranquility,
Good.
where you just have a sanctuary spell on you. entirely. It just well, you get a sanctuary spell on you that lasts until you make a swing, right? Like it has the same limitations of a normal sanctuary spell. But that means that anyone, if someone tries to jump you in your sleep, if someone tries to jump you on the street, they have disadvantage to attack you. And the saving throw against you is pretty good because it's based off your wisdom. I think it's nice, but the fact that it has the same limitations as a normal sanctuary spell, I think it's cool. But again, you're gonna punch someone. That's your life. That's what you're gonna do.
But
So
I will say
it's not gonna stick around long.
I will say, Rennie, but it's a great way for you to get into a situation to
Oh
punch people
sure,
because you're like, I walk into the middle of this army and they're all like, go,
yeah,
and you're like, I need to speak to your leader. Hold on 1 second. I'll get with
right,
you
right.
guys. Give me one moment.
Um, yeah, and then the quivering palm technique, or like the five fingers of death,
Oh,
right?
so good.
It's honestly it's a very strong ability. Whenever you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, so you know, all the time, you get to spend 3 key points, which to be honest, for this ability, it's pretty damn cheap. Um, and then you kind of get to put this sort of walking key death on them for a number of days equal to your monk level. So starting out 17 days, just sort of half a month, you're like, you have the walking death. Um, and then you can just kind of use your action to pop it and make them take 10d10 necrotic on a failed con save. That's really,
Well,
really
well,
nice.
no, they take 10d10 on a success. On a failed, they drop to 0.
I'm sorry, right. If they fail, they just they just fall down. They just fall down. And then if they succeed, good job, take 10d10 necrotic. This ability is just it's amazing because it doesn't have limitations. You know, granted, it's a number of days, which that's never gonna matter. But like it's not size restricted, it's not it doesn't matter if they're on the same plane of existence as you, which can be a problem, probably isn't. You can pop someone one round, and then the following round go, "Hey, buddy," uh, and then you lock in the five finger of death, and you can just put someone on the ground.
Yeah, it's like you drop 4 of your attacks into them for being a sweet ass monk. Maybe you stun them, and you're like, oh, by the way, you thought stun was a problem. You're also
Yeah,
about to have a heart attack.
yeah, and again, it's just a way of open hand. It's just really solid. And that high end ability is, in my opinion, it's so powerful for what it is. But really, the reason it's so frightening is 3 key a pop. That's just it's cheap, no matter how you cut it.
Yeah, for an automatic 10d10, because the save means they still take 10d10.
Right.
All right, and I guess I will handle the last monk, which is the Way of the Dragon Ball Z. I mean, Sun Soul Monk. Oh. So, did you ever want to blast people with key energy? Do you want to be Ryu or Ken? Do you want to, hurl energy blast or light blasts? Well, they're for you guys. They're pretty neat because they get to replace their melee attacks with these energy bolts that have a 30-foot range, so not huge range, but more range than most monks that do their martial arts die plus dex, which is sweet. Um, and you can spend a key point to essentially get a flurry of blows with them. That is not called a flurry of blows, just in case that you have benefits off your flurry of blows, which you don't. Um, then they also get at 6th level a burning hands as kind of like as they start hitting you with their punches, they've built up enough energy that they can, as a bonus action, unleash this like searing fire cart. So you literally become Guile, where you go Sonic Boom, and you like hit them with the energy, and it slams out in fire, and they can upcast it, which is pretty cool with their key. Um, and it's only a bonus action. So not only can you punch someone, you can then burning hands them, which I think is a nice combo because if you get a stun off, they automatically fail your burning hand save. So that's pretty cool. Their mid tier, like 11th level ability, is just a spirit ball or spirit bomb. It's a fireball
It's
essentially.
Kamehameha. Yeah,
It's
it's fucking
Kamehameha, and you can
Kamehameha.
power up with Ki. The only downside to it is that it is a con save that if you make, you don't take any damage. So
Yeah.
it could it could um not be a huge amount. And the nice thing about it is it doesn't cost any key to do for the initial 2D sticks, but if you want, you can pump up to 3 more to kind of get your 8d6 fireball out of it. Um, and it's awesome, and it's 150 feet range, which is again another thing that you as a monk don't really have. But radiant damage is awesome. Most things aren't really defensive against that. And then lastly, you are the fucking sun as you kind of start shedding this energy, as in the terms of Deadlands or other kung fu movies, your cup overflows. Um, and you just have this 30-foot light, and then even further, you can extinguish it or make it as a bonus action. And while this light is on, you get a reaction to deal radiant damage equal to 5 plus your wisdom as a reaction to anyone who hits you with a melee attack. So it's pretty cool. I think it's a little weak for 17th level. I guess you do have a shitload of. You just have light, so that's kind of nice. But I think 5 plus maybe 5 is a little weak as a 17th level ability. And if I were to do it, I would have done it as like maybe just like every time you get hit, but it only does like your wisdom mod. So it's like low damage, but it's like every time because it's your 17th level ability. But I didn't make it, so that's you should get at Jeremy Crawford in the comments.
Gene, do you want to know if I was a monk and I was a DJ? Do you want to know what my DJ name was if I was a monk?
I don't, but you're gonna tell me.
It's instead of flurry of blows, it's a blurry of flows.
Wow. I mean, that could also be
Isn't that awesome?
that could also be a sweet monk rapper too.
Yeah, monk rapper, monk DJ, blurry of flows.
Okay, that's the worst.
And you know what? If you hate it, that means I'm doing something right.
I mean, you poo pooed many of my original namings of this episode, which were all hilarious puns. They were
Were they?
mediocrely funny puns.
There you go.
They were
That's a lot
definitely
more accurate.
puns.
All right, we're gonna roll some initiative
All right.
because it's time to talk about some things that the monks aren't so great at. Ooh, back with the 12.
Yeah. Back with a 12. Also, remember, people, you can feel free to ask questions to us about the class, just about us, about the world, stupid questions, wise questions, anything in between. We either get them directly in chat or we'll save them for the end. So just reminding everyone, and let me roll some dice. Oh.
Oh, get out of
I
here.
mean, so
Get
far,
out of here.
it's been half, which is definitely better than average for me normally.
For you, yeah, no, definitely. All right, guys. So we talked about a lot why monks are cool, and they are for a variety of reasons. But listen, no class is perfect, and they're kind of that's the intention. And there are some weaknesses to the monk class, and we're gonna start with they kind of have poor hit dice for being primarily melee focused. Um, a lot of their abilities are based off of melee. A lot of their abilities don't work unless it is melee. Um, and having a D8 hit dice, again, having to be in the shit, as it were, can be a little rough, especially at lower levels. And listen, I've definitely played a monk a couple of times, and I definitely have felt like, oof, I can't stick around here too long, or it's gonna go very poorly.
Um, and also monks are really cool abilities that while one of their strengths is being that they are self sufficient, they are also self serving. All of their abilities really focus on them. They're not hugely team players unless you count really stunning people as a team play. But really, you're also just doing it for yourself because you're making it so that your enemy's not hitting you or you're getting better attacks on them. So a lot of their abilities don't really help the party out. Besides, they apply damage and minor effects on enemies.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. Another thing is, unless you are playing a very specific kind of monk, you probably don't have a lot of ranged options. And beyond not having a lot of ranged options baked into your class features, you the proficiencies you get with ranged objects are like daggers and darts, and maybe slings. It's just not. It's just not a lot. Um, Plus, a lot of your abilities don't care about range, so yeah. Um, they're most definitely the least ranged class out there.
Another
Well, maybe barbarians.
yeah, I think probably, but they still get all their cool stuff off of throw hurling javelin.
Truth.
So, I think monks another thing they have. They don't really have a lot of magic item support. The only way to really boost your defense
So true.
is you get like rings of protection, cloaks of protection, and bracers of defense. Um, there are some good stats for monks, but very few and far between. There's not a lot of magic weapons. They can't use yeah. They can't use armor and shield, so that takes out a majority of some nifty items. So a lot of their support come in like wondrous items, which are someone else might have a better use for. So just know that part of your self efficiency and ability to punch your way to victory. There's not a lot of things that boost your punch your way to victory.
No, that's true. Um, the next thing is, because martial arts is powerful in its own right. It takes some time to kind of get powerful, but because of that, you get very limited weapon proficiencies. You start out with simple plus short swords. And again, unless you're very specific kind of monks, you really don't get much else. And even with this dedicated weapon feature from Tasha's, if you're not a lineage that gets a weapon proficiency, you 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 got not a lot. Probably a stick. Probably a stick. So yeah, you might find that your options are kind of limited in the weapon department.
And to kind of finish that off with that limitation, you don't do a lot of damage. Your damage is generally your die plus your modifier. No pluses, no additional effects. You're not getting a lot extra. And so while you can get, four attacks around pretty easily or three at the minimum, your damage doesn't, it's never going to be a huge burst or spike like rogues or paladins or some of the crazy outputs because you also don't have the support to like make your damage get huge bonuses for penalties.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so kind of we talked a little bit about in combat, but out of combat, monks aren't super skilled. You're not, again, a lot of their abilities are self-serving, and they don't get a huge variety in the skill department, and a lot of their abilities are not for out of combat. A lot of their abilities are how you punch. Do you punch better? Do you punch with fire? Do stuff like that? So you don't get a lot of abilities that affect out of combat stuff, or kind of problem solving outside that arena.
Yeah, and since they kind of need to do a lot and like they're in the middle of a lot of things, they're very multi ability score dependent. While focusing on dex and wisdom, some of those other stats are You might want some strength. You might want other things. And so your constitution and HP often suffer. And there is a hard AC cap that if your stats are 20s,
Yeah.
your AC is 20. And the only way to improve that is magic. And, you know, and while, yes, other people can do hard at cap of 20 because they have armor and shield, they can get magical armor. They can get magical shield. So unless you figure out a way to boost your AC through feats or spells, it's going to be really hard for you at the end. That once you've hit that cap, that's your cap. You have that ceiling, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. Um kind of working off of that, they don't really have a lot of control, like crowd control abilities, period. Like they have one crowd control ability, and it's stun, again with very few outliers with some of the specific monk paths. But stunning strike is very melee focused. You don't really There's not really ways to gather several enemies with crowd control. And if there's a creature that can fly or teleport, while Monk is definitely one of the more mobile classes in the game, it can still cause you problems. You are probably less prone to enemies being mobile than anyone else in the game, but it can still exist.
And again, stunning being a melee thing, it also goes against Constitution saves. So when you're fighting larger monsters or bigger threats, they often are either proficient or have very good constitutions, and your GM will spend as many legendary actions as they have to stop a stun going through. So it's a good
Oh
way to
god, yeah.
burn through saves, but it's also a very easy save for a lot of monsters to make, especially since monks have no way to increase their saving throw,
Right. Right.
like many casters.
That's a very good point. Um And again, the monk, while they get a lot of abilities, which can be really cool, they almost, I don't know if they get too much, but you might find yourself kind of in the punch, mindset of monk, which is not a bad place to be, but they get a lot of choices. They can do stuff with their actions, whether it be defensively or offensively, and their bonus action as well, and their reaction, even to that measure. And it can feel almost like there's too many choices there, and you're not sure what the right path is. So it might kind of feel stale when you're just punch, 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 and you're not doing much else. When in theory, you might be able to do several things. There's just so much that you're like, well, I know I can do this, so I'm just going to do this. So again, it might take a little bit of time to kind of get comfortable with all of the stuff that's out there for them, but there it is.
And being a monk can also sometimes feel like you're burning a candle on both ends because key is your main source, and so it is very easy to grind through it for defense, offense, and weird augments. And so if you're not careful, you could spend all your key easily in a round or two, depending on your level. And some of the more taxing
Yeah,
abilities get pretty costly.
definitely. Kind of piggybacking right off of that, you are a class, or a monk is a class that very much relies on its short rests to refuel its key and its other resources. And so if you're in a group that maybe doesn't take a lot of short rests or don't benefit from short rests, you might find yourself being like, "Hey guys, could we just take a little nappy, just real quick?" So it could be a group dynamic. You may not mesh well. I mean, listen, if there's another warlock around, maybe a fighter, you'll be like, yo, guys, short rest. Who loves short rest? Come on, short rest. And you might find a lot of success there, but your paladins, your clerics, your wizards are going to be like, dude, I'm good. Fuck you. So that is something.
Find a party who loves to nap.
I'd say go hang out with warlocks, but I can't suggest that in good faith to anyone. Gene, are you ready to reflect? We're there, man.
Oh, we are there. Okay. Reflecting.
Room of reflection.
All right. So again, I will mention this before right before we go through our reflections. Please, audience members, if you are watching and you want to ask us questions about Monk or literally about anything, we will do our best to answer them if we can. It can be silly, it can be weird, it can be about D&D. It doesn't have to be. And yeah, so we're gonna keep on moving, but yeah, please ask us questions. And yeah, all right. So the room of reflection. You want to hit this
You know
off,
what,
Rennie,
Gene?
or do you want to?
You know what, Gene? I don't even want to roll reflection or roll reflection. That's not a thing. Roll initiative. I am going to graciously allow you to begin.
Wow, is this one of those situations where I have to use you and say, while I really appreciate the offer, how could I, in good conscience, let my elder not go first?
Um, it's not one of those scenarios, but it can be. Um, all right. Well, fine then. I guess I'll do it.
Wow, that was rude because you broke the cycle.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I had to be rude if you thought that there was some sort of pomp and circumstance attached to this. So really, in the room of reflection, we kind of talk about them kind of overhaul, right? We kind of do sort of zoom out, right? Sort of zoom out on the class and kind of take a look at it from not so up close. And as far as monk and multiclassing goes, there is some definite benefits to multiclassing with monk. Um, the best way that again, in our opinion, is a lot of monk with a little of something else. You're probably going to be a lot more successful. Now, granted, there are definitely builds out there that maybe a fighter wants some monk to be a grapple hero. That's certainly possible and viable if that's the way you want to go. Um, there is other outlying ones, but I find that I when I played a monk, oh, Lock Unruly asks which subclass is your favorite and why. I have to say, of the I've only played two of the subclasses, but I think my favorite is probably Way of the Drunken Master because
Okay.
it's just every time I know as a player I would just be giggling every time I did something. I would just giggle at my ability and then I would fall down like on purpose. I'd be like I fall
Yeah,
down and
I'm gonna
I would have
build.
so much fun.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna build one of those soon if Julia runs her new game where I get to be a silly
Oh
dungeon
yeah.
master. I will say my favorite subclass. So I've played monk a few times, and I've never played it, but I really want to do astral self because that seems
Ooh yeah, buddy.
really fun. And also I kind of like the idea of kind of like projecting this like image above you that is just like bigger and stronger than you are, and I think it could be really neat to kind of have and that could be like even like a weirdly monstrous beautiful like too many eyed angel is your astral self, and that could be kind of strange and cool. Or I could also see this like spider legs coming out of your back, and you kind of do that punch forward as you're being moved by your astral self, puppeted. I could see that as kind of like a fun astral monk concept.
Definitely. DJ Poser asks, which class do you enjoy multi-classing with Monk the most? I know my answer. Um, I think that Ranger and Monk, from a mechanical point of view, multi-class incredibly well together. Because a little bit of Ranger, you get just a little bit of spell casting, uh, things like 100 Mark, favorite enemy, um, and you get like a weapon style out of it. You get some proficiencies and crap, but who cares? Um, but like you get just a little bit more damage support and spell support. So, like, listen, I'll tell you, a monk with the spell jump,
I
shit's crazy.
My GM was not very happy.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Or expeditious retreat, or not expeditious. Whatever the one that gives you the 10 feet extra, whatever that one is.
Long Strider?
Oh, long
Yeah.
strider. That's a fucking great move for a monk.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, so it just gives you a little more tools to really just amp your monkness to 11.
211.
Uh, so you know what? And I'll stop there because I don't know, Gene, you might have a different opinion. I also
So
like rogues,
I
but
was I was gonna say rogue with like the right kind of monk can be hyper dope. Honestly, any monk and rogue, you'll get sneak attack. You'll get also more shit to do with your bonus action eventually. You'll get a whole bunch of skills you wouldn't normally have, expertise. But
that's very true.
I will say one of my favorite experiences was Rennie suggested Ranger is really cool to pair with Monk, and we were doing a dragon slaying campaign that my friend was running, and I played a way of the open fist or open palm and colossal slayer ranger combo, and the amount like where monks were like mediocre damage and we talked they're weak. I was pumping out too much damage with a quarterstaff because I had the fighting style of one handing it, and it was bananas, the amount that I could do. And so I will say that, yeah, comboing Monk and Ranger, hyper solid since both require Dex and Wisdom. They're going to mesh pretty well together. And now with Favorite Enemy, oh, DJ Poser, didn't we kind of see this recently?
Here, Gene, why don't you move on to the next thing in the reflection, and then we'll
Okay.
jump to DJ
Okay.
Poser's question.
All right. All right. So, feat and combo build. So, my problem with Monk is they don't have a lot of support. I guess maybe now with some of the specific type of damagers that can help, like Crusher, Slasher,
That's true.
Piercer, but they can't really benefit from like Sharpshooter unless you're a Kensai. You can't benefit from Great Weapon Master. So, and you know, you can't benefit from Dual Wielder. So, like, there's just a lot that you don't have a lot of cool support to make you eke out. You know, you can get some like auxiliary, like you get Mage Slayer, so situationally you're better. You know, you could get Sentinel, which will make you really mean, uh, especially
Yeah.
if you go in the Broken Monk. Um, and you can also but mobility, I find a lot of monks take mobility only for the sake of with so many attacks around, it really lets you just be moving about like a crazy person and just getting wherever you want. And then
I mean, it's basically free disengages.
and with your kind of stats build, I also see a lot of monks with observant so that you notice a lot of things. So that way you're a little bit more useful out of combat too, where you can kind of pick up on details where some people can't. Because you also need to raise your wisdom and dex the entire.
Yeah, that's smart. I like that observant idea. All right, Gene, why don't you ask DJ Poser's question?
All right. Which class would win if there was a battle royale with one of each class represented? What level? That's really the question that comes down to it.
Yeah,
DJ Poser.
I think that's because I think that there's a different answer depending on each tier of play. You know what I mean? I think low level, the casters are kind of at the biggest disadvantage. At high level, the casters, it's a caster's game.
Yeah.
Mid tier, that gets a little more foggy. But strong bets on paladins. Because
Barbarian.
again, barbarians too, especially at low levels, low and mid levels. I'd even say for barbarians,
Yeah.
because they can just crush through your hit points if you don't have
And
that
then we
many.
all know that
Um,
high levels.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, god damn it. Yeah.
It's moon druid or even the totem druid because Rennie played the fucking crazy summoning druid, and you're like, by the way, I could deal with this problem, or my 8 Allosauruses could, and I'm gonna
Dude, I
go home now.
I gotta say that was honestly, and we're gonna do a druid episode. And don't get me wrong, I'm gonna tell the story of when I pretty much broke a game. But anyway, um, with a woolly mammoth. But I found that playing a shepherd druid was kind of like playing on hard mode because like you are both player and GM because you have monsters that you control as well as you're a healer and a spellcaster. And again, you're a monk, a fucking druid. So like you could do, you know, everything,
Yeah.
just everything.
So I'll say so. Then my other option would be I say fifth level and like up to like seventh or eighth. Well, maybe not, but like fifth level play, monks are probably solid because they just got stunning blow, and that's gonna blow people away. But once you hit like 10th level, it's paladins because you have your auras, and with your pluses to your con and charisma to saves, you're like fuck whatever spells you're doing to me. I'm about to thunderfuck you with smites. And if you, I think, and that's pure paladin though, not multi-class bullshit, but a
Yeah.
pure paladin. Once you hit sixth, seventh, eighth, you get all your auras. You start getting a little berserk.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's a tier by tier that's got to be a comparison. We can't just be like this class is wins, it just wins.
I mean,
Like
we did
I mean
see,
druid probably, but still.
yeah, Druid. Druid's really good.
All right, next up monk, we talked about monk a lot. But as a pure class, they're pretty great. They get something every level. Uh, they get faster. Their martial arts dice gets bigger. They just get more and can do more of the thing they're good at. So as a pure class, you're not gonna have a bad time as a monk. Does multi-classing help? Sometimes, sure. But being a pure class is gonna mean more key, more, more speed, more extra movement, more everything.
I don't.
Uh
You
yeah,
also
go ahead.
mentioned that every level you get something as a monk. So
Every
multi-classing
level.
out, you're missing that thing you were going to get.
Right. You wanna hit our next point, Gene?
Yeah. So I guess personal anecdote about
I mean, we talked a little bit about our
yeah.
own personal experiences.
But yeah, I mean, for me, like I think monks are very flavorful. I think you can go with the whole key manipulation character. You can go with the whole monastery tradition, but I could also see you could be a bare knuckle drunk fighter, or you could be a manservant who studied different styles in the Orient or wherever or whatever D&D equivalent. But the idea is like I love pulp and always these bare-fisted bronze skins heroes. I could see you building like a Tarzan as a monk due to his like fast movement, being able to fight apes and using his bare arms. Well, you could always write him as a barbarian or something else. There are ways that you could make some of these really interesting pulpish heroes using the monk build.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, I don't know. I've played a monk kind of once, very briefly, where I made a shadow monk slash rogue, and I like that character a lot. And then the monk I played the longest was a game that Gene ran when I played a Sun Soul monk. I started out as an elemental monk because boy howdy did I love me some Avatar: The Last Airbender, and man did that class disappoint back in the day. um, but I got killed by a black dragon, and then I came back as a radiant soul monk and had just a killer time, just a really good time. Um, yeah, I think monk is a wonderful class. I mean, I was very famous in that game for running up walls and then back flipping off of them, and like being like Jesus, take the wheel, because like, what are you gonna do? 1d6 falling damage to me? Not fun. Like, I don't care. Um, but yeah, I love monks. I mean, I'm a big fan of the martial arts. I love that kind of physical drama that you can pull off as a monk, and yeah, you're not gonna have a bad time as a monk. But I will say this: what I have found as a monk is sort of it's sort of almost like a vanity class, right? And I mean that as like when you're making your party with your buddies, right? And you're like, who's cleric? Oh, I'm a wizard. Oh, fighter. Okay. You get all your staples. And maybe not your staples, but like, oh, you got ranged, you got some melee, like, right? And then if someone's like, well, what do I play? You have all these stuff. Go ahead and play a monk. Like, yeah, we got a slot open. Go nuts, do whatever. Uh, I don't. I feel like it's hard to kind of play a monk and be like, oh right, I'm here to just fill a role. You
Well,
sort of
I think like if you need a fight guy, you need a melee guy. I think you could put a monk in that place. You're just not as tough as most melee guys or gals.
sure, and I think you're gonna suffer for it.
Yeah, definitely, 1000%.
All right. Well, I don't know, Gene. Unless you got anything else, I feel awfully
Yep.
reflective.
Yep. Sure. I mean, if we shine your light brighter, we can get reflection. Here, look at this. There's a reflection. Reflect. Oh God. Oh God. Stop. That's horrible.
There you go. You happy
Anyway,
now?
nope. I did not like what I suggested.
Well, it's happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, unless there does not seem to be any more audience questions.
No.
So,
I think we delved deeply into the Dungeon of the Monk. And as always, thank you guys for joining us and listening to us. Delve another dungeon. That's 7 in the bank.
yeah,
And thanks for sticking around. It's been pretty awesome.
yeah, and also Rennie's not gonna thank you, but I'm gonna thank you for helping achieve Warlock and DJ Poacher. That's a great question. We will have that super dungeon, but I think Rennie and I are going to at least try to prepare for that one a little bit special.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
Yeah.
build like a silly overlay about it with like weird pack symbols and really dumb shit, and we'll like ham it up. Uh, we'll do it.
Gene, that might not be a bad 10th episode.
Yeah, that could be a 10th episode. But yeah, but because we have achieved the goal, we've done it within our 30 days
Oh,
of
yeah.
achievement. Yeah, it'll definitely be there. It'll definitely be on here. Rennie will be thrilled to do it. Maybe we'll like goth out Rennie. He'll wear eyeshadow and black lipstick and like fingernail paint. It'll be great. And
Sure.
we'll just hand this up and we'll just really drink in the warlock class and like I said, I think we'll do something fun where we'll do a little bit of a break in Dungeon Delvers, which we generally don't take because it's not very long episodes. And during that like 15-minute break, we'll have Rennie whip up a Warlock in D&D Beyond, and I will display it on the D&D on the Dungeons and Dragons extension, so you guys can check out his, let's say, 5th level Warlock, just to kind of give it a number, so it's not just like first level Warlock doesn't have a lot of flavor. But we'll roll him up using any of the D&D rules that him and I usually use.
You make a 0 level warlock. That's a warlock who's dead because they decided to be a warlock.
I mean, you get to pick the class, you get to pick the race, and you get to roll stats in the background. So it could be a very interesting warlock, Rennie.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I'll try to make them interesting because that's the only thing that would appeal to me. But regardless, I'm super excited.
Yeah, we'll do something awesome. We'll make big announcements. Again, DJ Poser, thank you for cheering us 2 bits. Everyone, thank you for succeeding in our community challenge. We'll have to think of something much more that Rennie will also hate, or I'll hate. But
whoa! What? Now it's your turn, big guy. You're next up.
I like most D&D.
That's true. You've played warlocks. I refuse.
I have multi-class warlocks. I've never played a full warlock.
I feel like we're beating this bit like a dead horse.
All right.
All
right. Thank you.
Do you have any shout outs to make?
I did my shout out, so thank you all. If you want to stick around with us for just a little bit longer, we are going to raid some friends.
We'll find someone.
Yeah, we'll probably raid Inspiring Adventurers because they're friends who play D&D with us and cool people. So give us a sec. We're going to sign out, and then we'll do the raid.
Guys, so good seeing you. See you next Monday. Or tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 7:30 for my Lost Legacy D&D game.